Don't you know that smoking is bad for you? Especially if you're an amplifier. Especially if you're a 1962 Brownface Bassman. Stop smoking! Sorry, baby. I didn't mean to yell at you. Let's just make you better, okay?
Okay, wow, this looks very, very original. These are as old as Methuselah, and I think we'll do ourselves a good favour in changing these. These I love. They can get a bit leaky, so we'll check those out. Hopefully I can keep those. And here's our little bias circuit. We'll change him over as well. Now let's have a look at these resistors here. These are the screen grid resistors, and in fact they do look like they've suffered a bit of heat. So there's one there. Oops, hang on, I've lost it. There it is. One there, and there's one over here. Now, as you can see, the original one was like a dual element capacitor. So in this case, I've decided to replace it with two individual capacitors. Two little Sprague 25 microfarads. One down, another one to go. What do you think? I'm pretty happy with those. They still, they're going to offer the reliability and stability of the modern metal films, but they still sort of look a bit old worldy. I'm quite happy with them. This one had increased by 50%. This one, the original one, was over 1 kilo ohm, so it was double the value. So this is just what they do. They just drift out of things. Some people reckon they sound better. I don't think it's going to impact on the sound there at all. Just setting up a control voltage. So onwards, I reckon if these were all so old and original, I reckon under our cap can underneath we're going to find some more old gems. As we thought, I don't know why whoever worked on this before didn't replace the whole lot. I've got no idea what that was about. Yeah, so I'm just going to replace all of them. And then what I do is I'll just put a sticker or something here so that a future repairer will know when I replace them. And yeah, these have got to go. Let's have a look. I bet you these have started to bubble. Yep. You can see that there. These are... Okay, we've done the main filter capacitors as per the original, with the exception of this fellow here that I made 68 instead of 22 microfarad, just to give it a little bit more current reserve for those demands. And new capacitor for the bias supply, and new cathode bypass capacitors. So it's time to get some power onto this amplifier and see if it's still smoking or just smoking hot. Okay, before we power it up, we've plugged it into my current limiter. Currently got it in limit mode, which means the supply power is running through this light globe. I expect to see it glow brightly as the capacitors charge and then go nice and dim. I'll then put it on standby. We might see another little flicker. I doubt it because I've taken the power tubes out. And if all is looking good, then we'll put it on full power, non-current limited. We can read the current through here and start measuring some voltages. Okay, here we go. Oh, let's turn the power on. There we go. Alright, so we saw that went bright. Capacitor's charged. Nice and dim. Now let me take it off standby. Okay, that's looking pretty healthy. I'm one of these people that suffer from a phobia, and my specific phobia is the fear of death. So I wear rubber gloves when I'm playing with really high voltages. Are they fully insulated? I don't know, but they got to be better than bare skin. Let's check out plate. 515 more or less. a bit lower, which is what we'd expect on the screen. Minus 46 on the bias. So I've now put the 2 tubes in the maxi matcher, and this is great because it sets up realistic sort of voltages and currents and biases. So these are working, they haven't shorted out. I'll put them back in for the purpose of testing, but I more than likely will change it. I know some people say that's okay, they don't have to be perfectly matched, but I personally like to see them better matched than that. So I don't know if you can see here that that plate wiring on pin 5 is just looking a little bit burned. I am concerned about that. So I think I might just cut this back a little bit, put a fresh joint on there just in case that joint has been compromised on both of those. I think I've got enough lead to play with, and then we'll try the tubes. And of course, before we touch anything here, I'm going to make sure that that standby switch is in standby operate, which means I'll have the full capacitor stored voltage on the standby switch, which is earthed through my little resistor thing here. So that'll just make sure that that capacitor is fully discharged before I go sticking my fingers in there. There we go. I'm feeling a bit happier about that now. Nice clean joins here on both of those 2 power tubes for the plate. One more thing before I put those tubes in, I'm not real happy with the condition of these sockets. I want to keep everything original, so I'm just going to get in there and give those a little bit of a scrub clean. Then I'll blow them out with the compressor, flush them, and hit them with a bit of deoxit. But first things first, we might need to retension a couple of these as well. Okay, this will take me a little while. Back soon. Okay, that's a lot better. And I'll just hit this with a bit of compressed air just to blow out any muck. And the astute amongst you will have seen that the bear claws which hold the tubes in place broken off, missing, so I'll need to get some of those in. I've just had a look, I haven't got any more in stock. Especially with most Fender amps where the tubes are hanging down, I think these are an important thing to have. Could it have been part of the issue, tube coming a bit loose, arcing, sparking, who knows, but let's just correct it anyway. Here we go, stand by. Oops, I didn't like that. Well, it looks like the problem was some faulty joints here. I resoldered all those joints. I put in my test set of tubes. I took out the original ones. I think they're pretty much stuffed. So here goes the final standby. Fingers crossed. Yay! Guitar! What we're going to do is we'll clean up all these pots, clean up the sockets, because I bet they haven't been cleaned for about 50 years. And yeah, cop a load of that. Now I need to do a bit of a recap for myself. You remember, but I need to do a bit of a recap for myself. So let's have a look at where this is up to now. We've changed the filter caps on the underneath side. Up here, let's have a look. We changed bias cap, cathode bypass capacitors, and what I think was the smoking in the first place is the screen grid resistors. While you weren't looking, I serviced all of these pots, which for me it's basically blowing them out with compressed air, flushing them out with a solvent, and then hitting them with a bit of deoxit, just a tiny little drip in each. And that's that. I've cleaned all of the sockets and joints here, cleaned them, retensioned them, cleaned out all of the gunk that had built up inside there and there. So I now think it's ready to get a bit of an audition. I've put in the new matched set of 6L6s, and I've set the bias to the minimum. I'm going to turn it on, make sure there's no horrible noises, and if there isn't, we'll bias up the power tubes up. I'm going to do it on the oscilloscope. I'll show you how to do it that way. I'm sure you know how to do it by measuring current, but I'm not going to show you how I do it on the oscilloscope. Okay, let's get started. My volume knob is, that volume is off. Okay, that's odd. That's with the normal channel off, increasing the volume, and the noise dies down. That's fun. I'm suspecting this volume pot. You might remember the guitar signal was coming through quite loudly when I had it off, wound fully counterclockwise. And also the noise was at its noisiest when it was fully counterclockwise. In other words, the signal had more of this actual track to pass through before it went to the wiper. When I turned the volume pot fully clockwise, i.e. the wiper was virtually a short circuit to that signal, almost bypassing the pot altogether, the signal was at its quietest. I'm going to try and give it one more clean, one more chance to survive, and I have my doubts that it will, and then we'll have to change that pot over. Okay, I took this pot out of that volume position here. It just looks like some cheap, crappy thing, so no great loss. It's obviously not one of the original ones. So it's gone, and I'll put in a good quality CTS pot. So fingers crossed that it was that pot that was causing the volume up. Full volume. That's looking good. Let me just try the guitar. Volume off. It's a beautiful thing when things work out. Alright, that's not too bad. I might put that original tube back in now. I reckon that might be okay, because while all the other tubes have been replaced, this is a very nice original Amperex valve from West Germany. So I'm going to put that back in V3, and fingers crossed that that's still going to be singing its previous glorious tones. Okay, that one could be better. I'm just going to try and switch that one out with that. Where are they? With that tube that I just replaced, the tungsole. So I'll pop him out, put that tungsole in there. See if this is an improvement. Yeah, that is better. So it's not going to be a cheap repair for this customer, but geez, it's going to sound nice. Hey laddie, would you be liking a wee dram of the Glenlivet? Hey, sadly there's none left. It's just a bunch of resistors. And it's my little dummy load box. I've got a 1 kilohertz signal going in there. About 125 millivolts I think I set it to. You know, sort of like a loud single coil. That sort of level. And I'm just cranking up the input now. It's at about at volume 7, 8. Might be seeing a little bit of crossover distortion there. and that's where we're clipping top and bottom. Just a tiny bit. Let's just take it just before clipping, and I'm just going to increase that bias. There we go. So see how as soon as you increase the bias, you'll see how we start getting into clipping, but I can see no more crossover distortion there. This is dodgy. Look at that. I'm trying to get it so that you can see both the waveform and the meter at the same time. Pretty dodgy, sorry about that. And I'm just going to start increasing this volume till we see it clipping. I've got this set to AC now, and we'll just see what voltage we get to when it starts clipping. And there we go. I would say, let's measure that. So this is RMS volts. Okay, I'm going to call that there. That's sitting at volume 8, just short of clipping, and it's 15.5 volts. So we've got 15.5 times 15.5 divided by 4 ohms. Oh, look at that. This little beauty is putting out 60 watts just at the point of clipping. I think the customer's going to be pretty happy with that. And that's... G'day. While I was waiting for the tube retainers to arrive, I decided to give the cabinet a bit of a clean up and glue down some of the lifting edges of the vinyl. And now I'll put that back together. The retainers have arrived, I'll install them, and we're just about done.
When I got this amp, it was smoking. And now, it's still smoking, but in a really good kind of way. Besides, smoking is bad for you. I think I'll go back to using this as a pen. Okay, let's see if this thing's working. Right, let's take it for a little walk in the park. What have we got? Set it on about 3. I like it a little bit brighter, so I've got the treble up a bit. Okay. It sounds bloody awesome. I'd love to have this amp. Gorgeous. See you next time.